to start it off with our team, the Raiders. Raiders made a big splash. They traded for a quarterback finally. They gave up a third round for Geno Smith. And we also signed Jeremy Chin. But since then, they've gone silent and just have gotten a couple low-key re-signings. But besides that, not really bringing in anyone new.
Well, I mean, listen, I should fire my friends who are also Raider fans. When you're a fan, and Rafa will say this, you're a fanatic. These guys get so attached to the names. Like I have some buddies that if you were drafted by the Raiders or you donned the silver and black, that they put it's like having, you guys have heard of parent goggles, right? You get those parent goggles and they're like, these guys were so good. Robert Spillane and Divine Diablo and Nate Hobbs and Morig. They were good players. Okay, but we didn't overpay them. We brought in replacements, saving money.
Much cheaper.
Obviously there is still a lot of work to do. But Ryan, I'm going to ask you right away your thoughts on the Geno Smith trade and getting him for a third round pick. You think that
it was surprising, but an unsurprising pair, right? Because they obviously have some chemistry, him and Pete Carroll. So I think that's also what Pete Carroll wanted, is a guy that he's used to and he's got chemistry with. And he didn't want to go the Russell route. Like, didn't want to make that happen because who knows what's happening with Russ, right? In Pittsburgh, it's like they're like 70-30, like 70% is Aaron Rodgers, 30% is Russell Wilson. So I wasn't, like I said, I was surprised that happened. But then when you see the story that came out of the Seahawks were trying to pay him like $40 million a year and he wasn't, with that, they were like, okay, well then we got to shop him for somebody else. And I also think that the Seahawks had their eye on Sam Darnold too. And it was like, if Geno doesn't take this is the route that we want to go. And they were already ready to make that happen because you could see like only a couple days later and signed. So I'm not too surprised. I'm happy you guys have a serviceable quarterback that can throw the ball finally, but I think he's a transition. He's a transition is what he is. He's not your franchise guy for like 2-3 years. I think that your franchise guy will come in free agency, if not next year, then the year after.
Do you think that we draft someone this year still, and then they sit a year under him?
The better question is this:
kind of what the Falcons did. So everybody's taking what the Falcons did last year after they lambasted them, right? Like, so the Falcons looked pretty dumb last year. Everybody's like, "What the hell are they doing signing Kirk Cousins?" I get that the deal for Geno isn't as much as the deal for Kirk Cousins, but I also think that they didn't like. Kirk Cousins has been statistically better than Geno Smith over his time in the NFL. So his contract is going to look like shit when Kirk doesn't pan out. But that model is what you're going to see so many teams do this year. They are like, I guarantee you the Seahawks also try to take a quarterback at some point in the draft to get somebody behind Darnold. Like, I think, and so it's going to be really funny how everybody switches up. It's going to be real funny how everybody switches up this year. And everybody switched up pretty quickly. That's the card you need right there. And I'm telling you, as soon as this free agency, I'm fingers crossed, toes crossed, all of it. I'm hoping that I know the Falcons are going after Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals are playing hardball right now, but I'm telling you, the model that everybody's going to be kind of using this year is what the Falcons did last year. And it's going to be repeated a number of times during the draft. When a quarterback gets drafted, when Darnold now has his successor right behind him, just in case he doesn't pan out, they're going to talk about what the Falcons did, signing Kirk Cousins in free agency and picking up Michael Penix. So you're welcome to the entire NFL. I
can't believe you're taking credit for this.
You're welcome. I'm glad that you guys finally see the light. And that we weren't crazy in Atlanta last year for doing what we did. And no, you can't say that this is the Green Bay model, because the Green Bay model, they were taking quarterbacks very late in the draft. These quarterbacks are going to be taken early because it's a terrible quarterback draft, and there's not a lot of them that are serviceable. So these guys, just like the Falcons did last year, with the foresight that they had, knowing this year's draft was not going to be good for quarterbacks, took a guy early. And you're going to see more teams do that this year, as well as signing a quarterback in free agency if they can.
Ryan Holmes did say, he said all the quarterbacks in this draft besides Cam Ward are backups.
I did say that.
Well, you brought up Trey Hendrickson. I had written something down. Would you, if you're the Raiders, give away your first round pick, number 6 overall, for Trey Hendrickson, the leader in sacks? Not just the leader in sacks.
No.
I believe he by like 4 sacks. You would not do that?
No.
No.
You're gonna give up a 6th pick and then still have to pay him when you already have Crosby and Wilkins, and like the other edge is not your main problem.
Yeah, defense is not your issue. Like you're basically, so you basically have
You're
a
shooting yourself in the foot again.
Yeah, you have a full cup. You got a full cup of water on the counter, and you're going to continue to
Just spill
pour.
it.
That's the dumbest. That's the dumbest shit ever.
Pete's a defensive guy. You can't get great on both sides of the ball in one off season, but you can get elite on one side of the ball in one off season. And Pete is a defensive guy.
You sure about that?
I mean, I would
Sure
love
about that?
I would love for it to happen. We're talking about,
You know who did it?
Don't. Oh, well,
Super Bowl champion Eagles. They did it.
Oh.
They did it in free agency. They picked up the running back that they needed, and they
True.
picked up the defensive players that they needed. And I just heard today they have 20 picks with the compensatory picks that they have over the next couple years.
Damn.
20.
All Georgia
someone-
players, by the way.
And they're coming, and there's more coming because they got rid of Sweat. They got rid of like a number of guys. So
Yeah.
there's more picks coming because they're probably going to get rid of even more guys in the next year or so. They just reload on young talent, and
Man,
they
that
also
GM.
paid Saquon, so Saquon is there. Listen, the Eagles, they got a pretty damn good formula, man, and they got a really young team. They just got rid of Slay today. They got rid of CJ,
Yeah.
GJ. Like all these guys are now gone, and the youth movement is coming into the Eagles. You saw how well it worked out for them, so you can do that in an offseason with the draft if you draft right. And I mean, let's call it what it is, though. They kind of caught lightning in a bottle with Saquon being let go from the Giants. So that was luck, but you can do it, and they did it last year.